Federal government says ban on rice importation stays. Trade Union Congress threatens shutdown as Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission denies 50% tariff hike. In international news, U.S. Congress certifies Joe Biden as next president after pro-Trump mob storms Capitol. And in sport, CAF cancels Rivers Celtic Confederation Cup match.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Nigeria has recorded 1,664 new COVID-19 cases, reaching another green milestone in the coronavirus outbreak. This latest figure released on Wednesday pushed the country's total number of cases to 94,369. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirmed 22 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, recorded the new infections, with Lagos having the highest number of cases with 642. The FCT recorded 407 new cases. Plateau recorded 160 new cases. Kaduna State confirmed 83 new infections, and Rivers State recorded 62. Other states are Adamawa, Nasarawa, Abia, Edo, Anambra, Niger State, Ogun, Imo, Oyo, Kano, Osun, Borno, Delta, Enugu, Bauchi, Ekiti, Sokoto, and Jigawa. NCDC says the country recorded 72,292 recoveries and 1,318 fatalities. It says there are now 14,990 active COVID-19 cases. The NCDC also said Nigeria recorded 5 deaths in the last 24 hours. The agency had said that a multi-sectoral national emergency operations center activated at level 3 is coordinating response activities nationwide. The federal government has said the ban on rice importation into Nigeria is here to stay. Patrolling Nigeria Customs Service in charge of Sokoto and Zamfara, Abdulhamid Marji, made the emphasis at the reopening of Ilela border in Sokoto State. Marji said the border reopening was being monitored to ensure sanity. He said the border closure was in the interest of Nigerians because many instruments used by criminals were brought into the country through land borders. The Ilela border was reopened by dignitaries from Nigeria and Niger Republic. He called on Nigerians to show understanding and support for government policies and appealed to traders to adhere to business regulations and safety guidelines. The Trade Union Congress has issued a stern warning, this time asking the federal government to go back to old electricity tariff or face the consequences of its action. This was contained in a statement by the TUC President Quadri Olaleye and the Secretary General Musa Lawal, titled "Electricity Hike, Another Betrayal of Trust." The union described the decision as wicked and another betrayal of trust by the federal government. The Congress wondered why this government brings up unfriendly policies that are capable of crippling the economy and the Nigerian people. It said many companies which could not pay the previous tariff hikes had either closed shop or relocated to neighboring countries. The federal government again increased the electricity tariff payable by power consumers across the country. But the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission issued a statement denying a 50% hike. The regulatory agency blamed 2 naira to 4 naira adjustments in tariff on inflation and movements in foreign exchange rates. The NERC had announced the tariff hike in its December 2020 minor review of the multi-year tariff order and minimum remittance order. Members of staff of the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, in Lagos State have downed their tools. The staff say they will be on strike till the government heeds to their calls. One of the workers said the staff of the agency took the decision to go on strike to demand better welfare packages from the government. He says the recent increase in the number of visitors at the office for registration of national identification number has caused a lot of stress for the workers. The workers are requesting to be paid more for conducting the exercise, which he described as an extra duty. The workers are also demanding that the government provides enough protective kits at the office, saying they could get infected with coronavirus as they attend to hundreds of people daily. In another development, NIMC says national identification numbers holders are required to pay 15,000 naira to correct their dates of birth in the Commission's database. NIMC Regional Coordinator Fumi Okpesanwo says NIN holders are also required to pay a processing fee of 5,000 naira for card renewal or card replacement, as well as an address modification fee of 500 naira. Okpesanwo says the enrollment is free, but there are fees attached to card renewal, correction of date of birth, and change of address. The federal government says telco subscribers with NIN have January the 19th as deadline to link their NIN with their SIM cards, while subscribers without NIN have until February the 9th to do so. The University of Ibadan has cleared Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State allegations of certificate forgery. Deputy Chief Registrar Legal of the University, Abayomi Ajayi, appeared at the Federal High Court in Abuja on Tuesday to confirm the authenticity of the copy of the first-degree certificate tendered by Obaseki to back his qualification for the last September governorship election in Edo State. The APC and one of its members, Williams Adobo, accused Obaseki of forging his Bachelor of Arts in Classical Studies certificate, which he submitted to INEC. Ajayi says from the university records, Obaseki was admitted as a student in 1976 through direct entry. The governor graduated in 1979 during the tenure of Professor Tekina Tamuno as Vice Chancellor and S.J. Okudu as the institution's registrar. Deputy Chief Registrar explained that the absence of the university's registrar signature and date of issue of the certificate on the copy submitted to INEC by Obaseki was because it was not properly photocopied. And Lagos State Commissioner for Transportation, Frederick Oladende, has disclosed that Lagos, as a smart city, requires an integrated system consisting of road, water, and rail, which has made it compulsory for the government to ban motorcycles and tricycles, popularly known as keke and okada, because they are not in the state's transportation master plan. Oladende explained that the state was considering space as well as security as part of its reasons to stop the two-wheel and three-wheel modes of transport. The commissioner says the government would continue to utilize technology in enhancing road transport. He added that the last-mile buses, which would replace Okadas and Kekes, were also on course to be launched.
Coming up, African stories. COVID-19 lockdown impacts South African economy. And later, international news. U.S. Congress certifies Joe Biden as next president after pro-Trump mob storms Capitol.
You are watching ANN.
The city slept. We installed a board in the middle of a park with something special hidden inside. We wondered if people would notice. They didn't, so we invited Nigerians to add their polls to the scene, whichever way they chose to. Some literally added their own polls. Some sang, others rapped, and even recited poetry. As they added their polls, the board came alive. Hidden figures broke free from obscurity, inspired by the crowd expressing themselves.
You know you can't do anything.
Because why blend in when you can stand out? MTN polls. Do you? Dial *406# to join.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. South Africa's battle with the coronavirus pandemic has eaten into just about every fabric of its society. The country has been placed on different levels of COVID-19 alert. Now the country's new COVID-19 restrictions are weighing down its economy. Correspondent Angela Kopole reports.
South African growth forecasts for 2021 face downward revisions and debt may exceed 100% of GDP in the 22-23 fiscal year. But there is an immediate impact as the hospitality sector will bear the brunt of the new restrictions.
The economic impact will obviously be quite severe, particularly in the liquor industry, in the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry. But at the time the president made the announcement to take us to lockdown level 3, we did say, and we still maintain, that he didn't have too much of a choice.
The announcement came in the middle of the traditional holiday high season. Hotels catering for foreign and domestic travellers will be the hardest hit.
These hotels that are looking at foreigners rely on the 4-5 months from November to the beginning of March for about 60% of their income. The other fact is the local hotels and the local guest houses rely about for 40% of their income for the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas to the beginning of school term and just thereafter.
To make matters worse, government hasn't provided any support to businesses or workers.
We will also be interacting with social partners at NEDLAC, at the COVID Rapid Response Task Team that's been meeting since the advent of COVID, to see what the possibilities are of government extending some sort of support to businesses and employees that might be impacted.
South Africa a bit unique in that we've enforced business closures, but we don't allow for help to come through. It seems to be very much a problem in the poorer countries, but South Africa is a higher middle income country, should not have that problem, but yet we do. And that is going to have a devastating impact on the economy.
The latest lockdown is expected to be revised on 15 January. It all depends on the infection rates and whether they have come down or not. A new approach has been suggested.
For instance, the hotspots that have been declared, what's been the impact there? Are those still going up? Are those still hotspots? Have they worsened? If so, can we make appropriate targeted interventions in those hotspots, in those areas where we're seeing exponential increases in the virus?
There's no question that this latest lockdown has had an impact on the hospitality sector over that December period. The question now is whether that lockdown is extended beyond the 15th of January.
The African Continental Free Trade Area agreements kicked off on the first day of this year with fanfare and hope that it would change the fortunes of the continent. A country whose largesse has reached to every corner of continent, China, says the trade area agreements will bring new opportunities for more cooperation with Africa.
Beijing has hailed the potential of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which came into effect on January 1st, saying that it could bring new opportunities.
China and Africa will jointly hold a new session of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. Anti-COVID cooperation, economic recovery and transitional development will be major topics of this meeting, and we will build new consensus for unity and expand new areas for cooperation. We believe that the African Continental Free Trade Area and the China-Mauritius Free Trade Deal will bring new opportunities for cooperation.
Meanwhile, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area was signed by 54 African Union member states. It covers a market of more than 1.2 billion people and up to $3 trillion in combined GDP. The agreement aims to encourage trade between African nations by creating a single market for goods and services.
South Sudan has one commodity on which its entire economy depends, and that's oil. But the black gold has not been pumping enough revenue since even before the coronavirus pandemic hit. Now the country has unveiled fresh plans to woo foreign investors to boost its economy. Correspondent Patrick Hoyert reports from Juba.
South Sudan's government says it hopes the investment conference scheduled for this month will encourage multinational companies to put their money in South Sudan. However, the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business report ranks South Sudan 187th out of 190 economies on overall ease of doing business. The World Bank further says the legal framework governing investment and private enterprises remains underdeveloped. The report mentions the main obstacle to doing business in South Sudan is the high levels of corruption.
What we declare today, that is the investment year, is part of the reforms in the economic sector. We have been working as economic cluster on how we should prevent the corruption. You have seen a lot of committees which are formed. You have seen how the non-oil revenue increased, the collection increased.
South Sudan depends on oil money to fund 98% of its budget. Juba says it is keen to diversify the economy, and in order to do that, it needs investors in other sectors of the economy. But one economic expert says the government still needs to do more to attract investors in the country.
The government needs to do serious reform in the economic sector, from the Ministry of Finance to the central bank, and the reform that is executed, not a reform that is said. That way, the country will gain some credibility in the eyes of the international community and international banking institutions, and they will be able to get some loan, or they will be able to help the country to come out of the economic crisis.
The protracted civil war and the coronavirus pandemic have triggered inflation, resulting in prices of basic goods rising beyond what many here can afford. Some businesses have closed and many people have lost jobs. South Sudan says its priority is the hoped-for investment in agriculture, health, infrastructure, mining, petroleum, and even tourism in the hope of employing the unemployed. Relative peace is returning to the country, but business people say there are still challenges such as poor road network, which negatively affects business.
We are very hopeful, and we can see that with the peace that is here, now business is starting to boom. We are able to send trucks to wow. The only barriers will be the water, the floods, but not security.
South Sudan's government says it wants to reclaim the economy through private-public sector investment, and it will begin that process with the conference scheduled for mid this month.
When we return, international news. U.S. Congress certifies Joe Biden as next president after pro-Trump mob storms Capitol. And later, sports. CAF cancels Rivers Celtic Confederation Cup match.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. All hell broke loose on Wednesday at the United States Capitol when a mob of Donald Trump supporters stormed the hallowed grounds and invaded the halls in a bid to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden's win. In the mayhem, 4 persons are confirmed dead, one of them shot at the Capitol. Dozens were arrested as they breached security perimeters at the Capitol. Dozens of police were reportedly injured, and law enforcement officials say at least 2 pipe bombs were found near the Capitol grounds. The chaos erupted after Trump tweeted earlier in the afternoon, encouraging his supporters to descend on the Capitol. His lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, also told the crowd, quote, "Let's have trial by combat," end quote. After riots broke out, Trump called on his mob to remain peaceful, a message buried in his continued false claims that the election was stolen from him. The president has lost more than 60 lawsuits filed by his team in various courts in the country claiming voter and election fraud. And after the Capitol building was cleared of miscreants and secured, lawmakers determined to finish The Electoral College vote counts returned to the chamber and worked through the night to complete the business of certifying Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. They accomplished the goal just before dawn on Thursday. Vice President Mike Pence presided over the joint session and announced the tally: 306 electoral votes for Joe Biden and 232 for Trump. Shortly after Congress had validated Biden's win, Trump, for the first time, acknowledged his defeat in the November election and announced on Twitter there would be an orderly transfer of power in 13 days. President-elect Joe Biden gave a speech after the Washington incursion started. He said, quote, "Our democracy is under unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times." He described the chaotic events as an assault on the rule of law. Nearly a decade after the Syria war began, neighboring Lebanon now hosts an estimated 1.5 million refugees for whom life became more difficult in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, economic crisis, and political turmoil in the country.
When we visited the Rafai family in January, Hanan was desperate.
امبارح كنت عم بحكي مع اختي عبالها بدي بيع واحد من الاولاد، يعني هي اقصى حد. تخيل وين واحد وصل.
The COVID-19 pandemic and Lebanon's economic collapse pushed the Rafais from desperation into misery.
وصلنا لمرحلة كتير سيئة، يعني من موجب الأواعي كانت العالم قبل تحن عليك تعطيك أواعي إنه عندها زيادة، بس هلا هي يعني اللي كانت تعطيك صارت بحاجة. أنا هلا عم بلبس ولادي من الحاوية، والله عم بيحطوه كيس ثياب حد الحاوية بقلب الحاوية، بجيبهم بغسلهم بهاي بنلبس.
Family patriarch Bassam lost his sanitation and scrap metal collection jobs earlier this year. He hasn't paid rent in months. 88% of Lebanon's refugees live in extreme poverty, surviving on less than $3 a day. The UN Refugee Agency UNHCR says that's a spike over last year's extreme poverty rate of 55%. Families like the Rafais depend upon the goodwill of strangers and NGO aid.
Even the NGOs, with all the support they could give to the Rafai family and other families, it won't be something sustainable. It won't last long.
That's because Lebanon has the world's second highest inflation rate, 365%, according to a recent Johns Hopkins University study. As investors and international businesses steadily pull out of the country, analysts say recovery necessitates a government overhaul.
There's no clear path out of the crisis we are witnessing nowadays. The hope is on, let me call it, on democracy.
But an overhaul in the face of widespread government corruption and long-standing power monopolization will take time. For increasing numbers of poverty-stricken Lebanese and refugees, time is a commodity that's running out.
Up next, sport. CAF cancels Rivers Celtic Confederation Cup match. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Confederation of African Football has cancelled Wednesday's Confederation Cup clash between Rivers United and South African side Celtic because of fears of COVID-19. NFF said this was important because the South African delegation cannot be exempted from the required quarantine. The The NFF, in the letter submitted to CAF, also requested that the game be postponed and possibly relocated to a neighboring country. Barcelona head coach Ronald Koeman is asking for more time to instill his ideas after his poor start as Barcelona's coach. Barca failed Athletic Bilbao on Wednesday. The pressure is already mounting on Koeman, whose future could become more uncertain when the club's new president is voted in later this month. Koeman confirmed midfielder Carlos Alina will be allowed to leave, with the 23-year-old expected to join on loan. Barcelona had to postpone training on Tuesday after 2 members of staff had tested positive for coronavirus. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.